All right, so we've got the official warning that recording has been in progress, so we should be able to start going with that stuff. All right, well, Amory, welcome everybody. Wanted to go through and we're having our basically presentation number 3 of kind of looking at the new Cub Scout program. One of the things that I wanted to do tonight that was a little bit different than what we did previous nights was to go through and to um, look at kind of how the program is meant to be implemented and different tools that the National has provided for us for this piece in here. So hopefully we'll go about and we'll be able to show these different ideas. One of the things is that if we start looking at the particular program that we have here, is we start looking at the idea that's going to happen in here. And so one of the big ones is that they had mentioned in here is that this program is supposed to be easy to deliver and simple to explain and support. And so the idea with this was that there's supposed to be a lot of um, information provided for the leaders to help out with that. So that was kind of where my focus was going to go with on this. And so we're going to try to hopefully hit these different pieces as we move forward with that. All right. So those are kind of the main things that I'm trying to hit on as we're going to go through and look at this. So we'll see how it is and talk maybe less about some of the requirements. Not that we couldn't talk about the different requirements if people have questions on those ideas, but wanted to go about and look at, okay, what is different things that have been set up to help us implement to make as myself, if I'm a den leader, how is this going to allow me to implement this program and what's going to happen with it? All right. First of all, I suppose that we need to go about and hit on the, just kind of a few basic things about the program. For each of the different rank requirements, as they mentioned in here, they have 6 different required programs or 6 different required adventures. Got to make sure I use the right term in there. And then you have 2 electives for each of the different ranks. All right. And so here's kind of showing a list of all the 6 different Cub Scout level programs. All right. And what are the different names of all the different required adventures? And of course, one of the things that we do want to notice in here is that there is some uniformity between the different programs as they move from level to level in there. All right. So there is, there's a one of the adventures deals with character and leadership. Happens to be the name Bobcat across all of them. Next one there has stuff to do with the outdoors. This one doesn't have the same name for all the different programs. Then there's one for personal fitness, citizenship, personal safety, and then family and reverence. So those are some uniformity that does happen throughout the program. And so these are items that they wanted to go about and in redeveloping this program, have this similarity in here. So they keep hitting again and again on some of these same ideas. But one of the big things they are really trying to, hopefully, one of the big goals was to make sure that they are trying to be, age appropriate for each of these different items inside of that in there. And I guess, one of the things we'll find out is that how well this actually, new program does hit on that. And so as we, in the first couple of months, we'll have to see. Hopefully that was done well. I believe there's been an awful lot of groups that have reviewed and looked at this, and so I'm hoping that I'm sure everyone did their due diligence. Not there could be some stuff that different people will disagree with, but hopefully for the overall, for most of the mark, they've gone about and have done everything. All right. One of the things is that this next slide again is trying to look at again. There are certain adventures available for all the ranks. We just mentioned that there is, we're talking about the required adventures. Then also getting into the elective adventures. All right. So there's certain things that will happen in there. So the thought is that, kind of as you're doing your normal yearly pack program, you might be able to go about and as people do different things, they're able to knock off some of those elective pieces and maybe even some of the different required adventures, depending on how you go about or set those up. And it may be not going to be the entire required adventure, but maybe certain requirements from those required adventures that's going to happen there. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, I do want to kind of look at some of the different tools provided. Okay. And these are going to be, for the most part, these are going to be looking at some different websites that I've gone about and found that kind of look at these different things. And then, I do have here some slide decks that I want to do. And then I want to go about and just kind of look at, bring forth just kind of the web page and look at them live a little bit. Hopefully, live demos sometimes have issues, but hopefully we'll be able to go about and be successful in terms of that. The internet will be good to us tonight, that we're able to go through and deal with this, and we can look at some of these tools. One of them that I have in here is going to talk about the multi-rank activities, basically multi-age groups, kind of how you might be able to try to set up some of these different ideas. And then also look at, there's been a lot of information that has been, as I mentioned in there, putting in there for that simple and easy, particularly geared towards the leaders. And what are some of these tools and things that they've gone about and provided with that? So those are kind of the big things that I wanted to kind of hit on, is how we're planning these DEN activities, and what are things that they can do with those. All right. So the first one I wanted to mention in here, this is going to be a web page, and there's a couple of different councils that have gone about and kind of sliced and diced this stuff differently. One of the ones that I've encountered has been from the Sam Houston Area Council. I'm not going to say that it's the only one that's out there, but it's certainly one that I've liked it, and it's been when I've kind of needed to look at a few different things down here. It certainly worked out in there. The QR code there takes you directly to that particular page if you were so desired to go through and look at that in there with that piece. I went through and I was going to try to find the QR code for other stuff that I did. I put that QR code together a while back, and I can't remember what tool it was that gave me that cute little dinosaur sitting in the center there. Anyway, so here's kind of looking at the page that we have here from the Sam Houston Council. And so it goes about and it mentions a number of these across their, the page in here, they're different activities. All right. So there's kind of looking at all the different activities that they've kind of gone through and looked at, and they've kind of grouped together. And so, if you're looking at certain things where you want to talk about it, and I kind of highlighted the Bobcat one. So, so that's kind of where it kind of shows that on the rest of the page down there. And that's, a lot of people are interested in what's happening with Bobcat. So I kind of focused in on that as one of the required adventures. But if we're looking at doing things with science or with swimming, paddlecraft, or citizenship, we have a number of different items in there. And again, one of the things I did like about this was that is the required ones in here, they got the little asterisk right before the names, whereas the ones that are not required, there's no asterisk in there. So that was kind of made it simple and easy for us to kind of look at different stuff in there. Again, kind of highlighting some of the ideas that, hey, this is the Bobcat adventure. This is kind of what the purpose of is happening with this, going on with that. If we do look into, we'd scroll down a little bit farther in this particular page, it went through and then showed all the different Bobcat requirements for all the different ranks. I only have here the top of the page in there. There's 6 different ranks, and so have to scroll by. I can come up and a little bit later kind of show this page live if we wanted to do that, which I do intend to do anyway. But this is just kind of showing that first piece of that information in there, how we might be able to go through and kind of grab, what are those different requirements, how do we deal with these, etc. Now, the one thing that I really liked in here, and this is kind of on the next page in here, was they tried to go about and look at some of the different requirements, individual requirements that are going to be similar across the different ranks. So one of the things they're referring to here is that pretty much all the different requirements for Bobcat do have in here where you're supposed to, the parent or legal guardians is supposed to review, how to protect your children from child abuse, a parent's guide. They're supposed to go about, and there's some activities that they're supposed to do with this. And so at here, they talk about here, all right, so this is going to be a similar requirement. And so if I am going to be a pack leader and I'm trying to talk about, to my parents, etc., hey, this is the thing in here. So lions, you've got requirement number 4, tigers, you got number 6, etc. We kind of highlight what's the actual number requirement that we can go about and do. And so we can kind of show that, hey, there's this very similar activity and how we would go through and get to go and deal with that. Again, down here in the next one, again, is another similar activity. Talks about here meeting the den. For the most part, again, that's requirement number 1, not for all of them. So we do notice here that we get to the arrow of lights, it is actually requirement number 2 as opposed to requirement number 1. But here's going to be things that's going to be very similar, that they could do across all these, all the different ranks in there. And so then as one of the leaders of a pack, we might try to determine and say, is this going to be something that maybe we have tried to do as an activity at a pack level, okay, where we go about and we set up different things, for each of the different dens together, because everybody kind of has to do this. Or would we want to go through and deal with that individually? And again, that's going to be something that, as we look at each of these different requirements, or as we would go about and deal with stuff, that's going to be something that each pack and the den leaders are going to have to try to figure out, what ends up being the most effective way to go through and deal with that. And certainly I could see that in a maybe in a larger pack, all right, where it wouldn't make any sense to try to do this all together as one big activity. There's too many people, too many moving parts. Much better as a smaller den activity. But if we happen to have a pack that was actually on the smaller side, maybe it might work out a little bit better to go about and try to do this, in a different setting rather than individually, across those ideas. All right. So those are some things that just kind of being mentioned, how we might want to go through and deal with this. Also, the other thing is that when we do look at these, these requirements, when we are looking them across all the different age ranges, remember that, the Lion Scouts, they're going to be in, they're in kindergarten. Arrow of Light Scouts are going to be in 5th grade. So there is a difference in how those scouts are going to react to different ideas, what's going to be the appropriate activity for them. And so as we kind of look down there at the, the next one in there, that Scout Law, there's definitely is one in here. It says, like for the Lions, it just says, hey, have your adult partner or den leader read the Scout Law to you. Whereas when we go about and get up to the Weeblos level and Arrow of Light level, it's more, learn about the Scout Law and maybe even to recite it. Okay, so those are different things that they're trying to do in there. And so, understanding how the different requirements that we have, it could be one that maybe you're able to mix it all together. Okay. But it certainly could be one where, maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe stuff that the way the requirement is set up for the older scouts could be different than what we might have for the younger scouts. Right. Anyway, let me go about here. Let me go through. I want to try to bring up, where is there it is. This is the actual web page. So I'm trying to go through here and try to slide this in. And I'm hoping that we're now looking at that particular web page that we have. And so this is kind of the Sam Houston Area Council program planning page. Maybe I want to make this page just a little bit larger. Let's see if I can do this without destroying too much information. Good. I think that made it a little bit larger so we can kind of read it here a little bit better on our in the Zoom meeting here with what's happening. Let me make this a little bit wider so it looks a little nicer on our presentation. All right. So anyway, so here's kind of this web page, and here's kind of showing the different requirements, kind of talking about the general pieces that are going to have in here. The initial page kind of goes about and just kind of highlights all these different requirements, listing here the all the different required ones, and then all the different elective ones that they have kind of going across here. And again, you'll notice in here that, like things like knife safety doesn't actually, it's only for the upper scouts that go about and they have some of the stuff here for knife safety with that. So there's not necessarily every single elective requirement is at all levels inside of there. All right. One of the things that we do notice here, like for camping, there's an elective requirement for everybody except for Arrow of Light. And part of the reason for that is that in their outdoor adventure is Arrow of Light, they actually do camping. So that moving about for the Arrow of Light Scouts, it moves from kind of an elective activity into a required activity. So those are some differences that they might have set up with these pieces in here. But again, let's say if we went through, and so we kind of looked at that web page that I had earlier was that screenshot I used earlier was looking at the Bobcat information. So if we're going to click on the Bobcat piece here, we could kind of scroll down and kind of see all those pieces in there. First, kind of give a nice general overview about what is happening, what's the whole purpose of the Bobcat, et cetera, in here. And then it's going about listing all the different requirements at the different levels. Okay, and then as I continue to scroll down, here's where it starts looking at, hey, let's look at this. What are kind of the categories of different requirements as we might see them across all the different ranks? So there's kind of that one talking about the, how the booklet, the activity booklet that the parent or legal guardian is supposed to go over with their scout, and then moving down in here, things about getting to know the den, the scout motto, the Cub Scout motto, the scout law, scout, the oath and law. So here's kind of some different things that they mention in there, with these different pieces in here. So those are ideas that they're kind of mentioning. And again, as certain requirements, got special things in here talking about particularly for your Arrow of Light dens, where their main purpose is to go through and get them to be prepared to move into the next level of scouting, a Scouts BSA troop. And so kind of do things like the patrol method, do things in here, visit a troop with that. So those are activities that are appropriate again for this particular level, but they're kind, since these are all blank over in here, they're not appropriate for these other levels. All right, so those are some stuff that they're trying to set up and look at, is the requirements in there, and kind of looking at this kind of from a higher level view, all these different pieces, kind of shows it, a little bit about what the overall idea of the program is in here. Again, looking at another one here for the outdoor adventures, okay, showing the different outdoor adventures. This is, again, required for all the different ranks, so there'll be 6 of them listed in here, 1 for each of the different areas. And then as we kind of go down here and we look at the, as we, at each of the different levels, the understanding of what the outdoor essentials are. Those are going to be needed across all the different pieces in here. All the different ranks in here, and then kind of looking down here, hey, there's supposed to be some sort of like a walk or a hiking requirement, but difference in here where some of the younger scouts are just saying, hey, let's go out and explore for a certain amount of minutes, whereas the older ones are starting to go about and hike for certain distances in there, or they maybe have multiple requirements that are going to be how they're going to go through and look at these different ideas in there. So again, so this is kind of nice as we go about and we try to identify what might be pack level activities, or if we happen to be in a smaller pack, okay, how can we go about and kind of maybe we're trying to go about and have a den meeting that might have multiple dens from different ages in there. What are going to be some requirements that we can work together, kind of pair up in there. But I do want to go about, and this was actually in talking with a Cub Scout leader who I have a lot of interaction with. Comment being mentioned in there was to make sure that if you do kind of pack level activities, or if you kind of join multiple age groups in there, remember that the scouts are then, if you're going to keep doing that year after year, the same scouts are going to kind of see the same things over and over again. So make sure that you do try to mix it up a bit, okay, so that you're not seeing the exact same, the scouts are not seeing the exact same program year after year in there, all right? Because then that can get stale. They can say, okay, wait a minute, we've already done this. Why do I need to go on there? Make sure that you are kind of, identifying what is going to be those different challenges at the age groups going on. Those are a few things we do want to go through and mention with it. All right. So anyway, so as I do mention here, we kind of looked at 2 of them for the Bobcat for the outdoor adventure. Let me click on another one in here just to kind of look at this. I'm going to pick up, for some reason, math sitting right here in the center, kind of look at this one in here. So there's some different ideas where they're talking about different things at math. And here was there are requirements across all the different six age groups in there. And as we kind of get down in here, one of the things is that we do notice with this one is that there's actually not any joint requirements in here. So so all the requirements really didn't double up and meet different groups in there. So so it's not like you have a similar requirement or similar area requirement that the wolves and the bears are going to be doing something like that. So so here was going to be one you might look at this and says, okay, here's these different requirements, and there isn't anything that's kind of similar joint stuff in there. So that would be something that, you know, maybe you're going to have to, if you would be planning on doing this at a pack level, you certainly have to say, okay, yeah, they're going to be independent. We're not really going to be able to mix them with these pieces in here. So there's just kind of some ideas being mentioned with that. So again, like I said, I've seen a few of these tools around in terms of this, how they go about and kind of specify this information. And this is one of them. There's certainly others. There's going to be this other one here, the one from the national website that we'll come back to and talk about in a moment after we go about and look at some other stuff in there. But those are a few things just kind of wanted to highlight in there about where are some of these different online resources. Again, we're trying to target in here, what can I do as the leader? You know, what are the different things that are available for me that are going to be out there with those? All right, so those are a few things to kind of mention with those pieces in here. All right. So anyway, so here is kind of going about, and now I got a couple of slides that are going to kind of highlight that national page that's going to go about and list out this information in here. So the in the scouting.org web page, okay, programs under Cub Scout Adventures. All right, if you just do Cub Scout requirements or Cub Scout adventures, you're pretty much going to get to this particular page if you do a Google search on that. And then if we kind of have in here, we would look at the different stuff, we would have the different requirements for the lions, the tigers, the wolves, the bears, the weeblos, the AOLs would be shown in there. I've only got kind of a screenshot of kind of the top piece inside of that, but we kind of get a feel about what's actually happening in terms of what's going on with that. All right. So if we were to kind of go about and kind of dive in and kind of see what is being presented to us on this particular web page, if we were to go about here and look on this one, I believe I ended up on the web page kind of clicking on the wolf rank in here, and so it's kind of showing about here the yeah. So this is the wolf level, as I kind of mentioned in here. So it's first going through here and kind of showing us the different requirements, the different required adventures, I should say, for the wolf level. All right. So there's as we mentioned here, the 6 different adventures that they have for them, kind of showing with them. We could then click on additional pieces of information here to go about and to get down and dive into the specifics on that. But one of the things I do want to kind of come up with this, I do want to go about and ask a question. And I'm not sure that I necessarily have the best answer or the only answer that is possible out here. And this is going to be a thing in here is that there are a lot of tools that we have online. National certainly has gone out and done with this. And so we might ask a question, hey, do we need the handbook, or can we go about and do everything online? And so that is going to be something that obviously that the you know is kind of a you know, in this internet age that we have all this information on there. What's going to be the right approach that's going to be done with this? I've certainly gone about and talked to some different leaders, and I've gotten what their preferences are. And some leaders definitely have a much stronger preference in one direction than another. And so this is going to be something that I've seen the answer both ways. And you know, you need to figure out what's appropriate for you, okay, and for your den, for your pack. What's going to be the right piece with this? And so one of the ideas, instead of me kind of coming off and trying to say, hey, this is what you should do, I kind of wanted to think about, okay, what were some of the ways that, what are some of the pros and cons that might come up with in terms of one of the different approaches in here? One of the first things that we might have, and I guess this is really a pro of going online, a con of using the book, is that, you know, there are additional costs if we do go about and have the books for each of the different scouts in there. Okay. And so, you know, depending upon what is, the availability, etc. Perhaps that is something that could be something that would be considered. One of the things is that I guess I do want to mention in here, not that I want to go about and necessarily, tell us that we need to go about and spend tons and tons of money at the scout store in there, but the Scouting America, as you know, where the program is the name is being changed over to that, is a not-for-profit organization, but it does have some expenses that they do need to go with this, and selling the books and things like that does go about and provide some of the financial backing that is needed to help run the program in there. I certainly feel that the program is very worthwhile. And so, I don't want to go about and say, hey, don't do this. If that's going to go about and have, financial hardship with the council, or, kind of on the other end with the people involved with that. So there's, we do have to kind of think about some of the different things. One of the other things in here is that having the book does go about here and give us kind of this reference material in hand. Part of the things that's going to be really nice about that is that if I'm at a meeting at Forest Preserve or something like that, maybe I don't have internet access while I'm out there. So if I need to go look something up, if I've got the book, I have that material with me right away. And so those are some things that we want to have. That could be a thing that might influence our decisions about which way to go with this in there. The other thing with that is I do want to point out in here is that how are we going about and recording the completed requirements for the scouts? If each scout has a book, there's a way they can go through and record it right there in the book. Also, I guess there are online ways of recording this in terms of scout book, etc. That will go through and deal with this. And so I have had people go through and, say, oh, well, they don't need to worry about completing the requirements. It can all be online with that stuff. But there is something in here where, part of the thing with the scouting program is to go about and help make the scouts, somewhat responsible, and having this stuff where they're able to see what they've recorded. They know what they need to do next in there. And that's something that I think might be a better approach if they have the book versus just going with it online in there. The other thing that I do also think about, having that reference material on hand. I've certainly known, scouts as they're going through this, number of scouts that I've in my family growing up. And one of the things with this is that let me open up the book and look at stuff and kind of review these different materials on here. So those are going to be some stuff that I did want to bring up this particular approach, even though the ideas that I am looking at here, a lot of these resources I'm mentioning are all going to be here online. Doesn't mean that that's the certainly not the only approach, and I'm not going to argue that it's the best approach. All right, leave that decision up to other people. But anyway, moving forward with this, one of the things, and so we were mentioning here right before this slide, if I actually jump back a little bit, we're looking here at the Wolf Bobcat adventure. If we do go online and we kind of look at this stuff, and I do believe that some of this stuff is also duplicated inside of the book in there. It does go about here and talks about, hey, for like a particular requirement, all right, they have different suggested activities that you could go about and get done. And so here is for the requirement one for Bobcat for the wolf level, where it was getting to know the members of your den. It has here a list of 3 different types of activities that you could go through and do. And does mention in here, if we look at this particular webpage, hey, do one of the following. So it's not that they need to do all of them. As the den leader, go through here and try to determine, what do I think will be of interest? We'll have, that will be kind of one of the better activities for my den to go about and to work on in order to complete this requirement. And so one of the things that they're mentioning in here is that this is this idea where they're trying to make things simple, making it easy, where they're saying, hey, here's the requirement and here's different activities that we are providing to you to help you complete this activity. So you don't have to go back and basically, as the den leader, reinvent this wheel every single time we need to go through and deal with it. All right, so again, this is kind of just looking at an activity, but I do want to kind of highlight a couple things that's being mentioned here. One of the first things I wanted to look at inside of here is that there is some sort of this guidance idea that's being brought forth that's going to tell us and give some information about what's happening for this particular activity, how it's being done in here. And so if we kind of look at some of these different ideas, we see that this wolf, the den doodle for the wolf, let's see, there's an indoor space for each one of these different pieces. This lightning bolt is going to be a 2 for each of them in here. What is it? This is normal. I've seen this referred to as a hamburger menu or different stuff in here. Here's a 4, here's a 4, there's a 2. Here's on this hourglass thing, it's a 4, it's a 3, it's a 2. So what in the world do these things mean? So let's kind of dive into that before we really start talking about the rest of them here. All right, so these adventure activity keys, as they're putting in here, they're kind of highlighting 4 different ideas. So the first one that's being mentioned, okay, and this ends up being kind of the meeting space out icon. And so it's trying to indicate whether this is something that can be done indoors, it is an outing with travel, or it's an outdoor activity in here. Where does the space need to occur in there? And so depending upon where you're planning on trying to do this, that can help you determine, are we going to do this indoors? Is this going to be appropriate to do? This activity is supposed to be done outdoors. Does this make sense, as a wintertime activity or not? So these are different things that helps you plan which might be appropriate activities in there. All right. The next one in here with this lightning bolt, this ends up talking about the energy level icon, how much energy the scouts are expected to do in there. And so the energy level icon ranges from 1 to 5, 1 being very low energy, where they're basically talking around or sitting around and talking, or they're listening for other stuff in here, versus all the way down to 5, which is kind of a very high activity level, where there's some sort of long distance manipulation. Maybe there's running around that needs to occur in there. And so those are different things that they've done here and trying to say, what's appropriate? Where are we going to do this? What's going to work out best for, how we're planning this activity? Should it be something we want to do as a high energy level, or is it something that we want to do as a lower energy level? And so they kind of go about and deal with this. And I've used here, put down some of the different terms, ideas that they mentioned about associating with each of these different energy levels in there. All right. So those are kind of the first 2 of these activity keys. The next 2 that we have here, the last 2, in terms of this, where we end up having kind of the this kind of 3-level bar idea, that's kind of our supply list. So that was kind of the idea where it's making here, okay, we got a list of information, check boxes that we're going to go in here. Again, rating it from 1 to 5. 1 being no supplies at all needed, 5 being that there's custom supplies or uncommon supplies that are going to be needed in there. And so they have a different level of activity. So one of the things that they kind of have here, if we're looking at this Den Doodle Wolf, okay, it's saying, we're going to need some sort of common craft supplies as we would go through and do these different pieces in there. All right, so those are some things that we'd want to, kind of look at in here. So again, it's helping us as the leaders, understanding what might be the appropriate thing, what's going to work out well in here. And then the last one in here is going to be the hourglass. And that's kind of this prep time. How much time do we need to go about and deal with stuff in here? And so again, with this Den Doodle activity, Den Doodle Wolf, it has here a 4. If we look at this, number 1 says minimal prep. 2 says 1 to 3 days ahead of time, we need to go about and do our prep. 3 says 3 to 5 days, a week ahead, more than a week. And so part of the thing that it's kind of looking at here with this one, it kind of mentions here, hey, we need to go about and get these common craft supplies. And so you might need to go about and, do this a week in advance, depending upon what sort of craft store you might have around you. Are you able to go about and get all the materials you need? If there's some stuff that you might want to get from different craft stores, or perhaps you need to order them online, you got to get them shipped in, again, a lot depends on, the availability of different stores around you for those pieces in there. So I kind of really like how they've gone about and they've identified these different things to kind of give us kind of an idea about what's happening with these different pieces in here. All right. Now, continuing along, just to kind of give a little bit ideas about with this particular, I keep going with this Den Doodle Wolf here. It has in there, here's a supply list. So they look at a wooden display stand, some sort of foam, craft foam sheets, some rulers, some pencils, permanent markers, scissors. There's a few more in there that I kind of cut off. Because I didn't have wanted to make sure that the words were big enough so we could read everything, didn't show everything in there. But there's kind of a nice thing where it kind of says, hey, here's what you need to do this activity. Then it kind of goes about what do you need to do before the meeting? How do you actually go through and create these different stuff in here? So again, there was multiple things that they needed to go about and prepare and work with on here. One of the things that this particular activity actually has in here is that there's this wooden display stand. Okay, and so that's probably one of the big things that would be, with this activity, why it's assuming you might need about a week to prep for this. Somehow you got to get this wooden display stand. You want to come up and you want to have the leader kind of create this name tag for themselves. And then all the different scouts are going to come up with their own name tags. Then on these different name tags, you're going to go about and put kind of different types of beads to kind of show them what they've completed so they can kind of have a visual representation of what they've gone through and done with this. And so there is a little bit of prep as creating what we're going to have for the den itself. And then during the activity, each one of the scouts is going to be creating their own name tag that they're going to be able to go through and deal with on there. All right. And then it talks about here is the last thing for this thing about, okay, what do we do during the meeting? How do we go through and present this idea and put it inside of there? All right. Again, I kind of cut off with the list in here. I think there was 6 different items that they kind of mentioned in there. If you do notice down here at the bottom, I don't, kind of a dot. I kind of cut it off at that point in time. Again, meant to be an example. But again, I really think that they've, national in terms of what the program has gone through and kind of said, hey, these are, we need to supply ideas for our den leaders to make sure that they're successful in doing the activities. And if the leaders are going to be successful in doing the activities, the concept then is going to be that the scouts should be successful in doing the activities. The scouts are going to have fun. They're going to want to keep in the program and then continue along. And so the longer they're going to stay in the program, the more they want to stay in the program, the better the program's going to do for each of the different scouts in there. So those are going to be some of the different ideas that they've kind of mentioned in here about how to present these different pieces in that. All right. So with that, let me actually go back and bring back that the web page and kind of go back to the live demo here and kind of look at a few different things. I kind of want to show a few of these different ideas how we might go about and get on this particular page. So here's going to be the page, and we get in here, Cub Scout Adventures. Scroll down just a little bit. It shows all the different ranks that are being up in there. It also does go about here and have some of the different some of the different updates that have been happening with the program. Okay. One of the big things is we've mentioned in a lot of the previous times that we've had these presentations is some of the differences between Webelos and Arrow of Lights. That's one of the biggest changes with the new program in terms of it used to be kind of the Webelos and Arrow of Light was kind of combined into a 1.5-year program. Well, now it's kind of broken down into a separate year just for the Webelo Scouts, where it's a year-long program for them. And then the Arrow of Light is kind of it has its own separate focus on there, particularly saying, hey, we're focusing in on that transition from the Cub Scout program into the Scouts BSA program. But anyway, if we're going to click on some of these ideas, first of all, we can go about and let's still start off with Wolf. We'll look at the Wolf Bobcat stuff, kind of show the other things that I had from where I got these slides from, kind of some of the screen prints inside of here. So we look down here, here's showing there's that Wolf Bobcat adventure. There's all the different required adventures. Continuing down lower, here's all the different elective adventures that we could go through and deal with on here. One of the things also kind of noticing inside of here is that we didn't mention this earlier, but there are going to be some of these special elective adventures. And these are going to be things that they say that can only be completed at approved events with qualified instructors. So things here where we're trying to deal with archery, with slingshots, with BB guns, those need to be done at basically at council level activities okay, where they are going about and have range instructors, et cetera, with that. So those are not going to be things that were able to be done at the PAC level. And I guess I kind of misspoke a little bit in there. I said council. It could be sometimes they might be able to be done at the district level as well, assuming the district level has all the right people, et cetera, going with that. So there's different requirements depending upon what the activities are inside of that. But there certainly are things that we want to look at here that it says, okay, hey, these are kind of special, okay? But these others, hey, you can do this as your pack, set those up, do it as your den. How do you want to go through and work on those things in here? And so you want to go about it and kind of provide those different activities with those pieces. All right. Again, kind of looking at here, if we have the Bobcat, the Wolf again, for the Bobcat adventure for the Wolf Scouts. There we go. So again, it kind of starts off here with having, a snapshot of the adventure. What's kind of the purpose of this Bobcat adventure? All right. Kind of goes about here and has some different safety moments, how to make sure that each activity is going to be safe. Very important things we want to look down here. Kind of goes about and lists out all the requirements that we're going to have. And then as we continue down here, it then heads looking about, hey, here are suggested activities you can do for different requirements. So here for requirement 1, as we already saw, it showed here three different activities in here. One of them was this den doodle that we mentioned. Another one here is like, hey, let's go about and let's create, a flag for our den. And so if we wanted to go through and look at this, here's kind of looking at some of the different activities that we mentioned in here, the location, how much energy, what's our supply list, how much time is going to be needed. And again, kind of showing there that supply list. Here's some of the different directions. What do we need to do before the meeting? What do we need to do during the meeting? And then, other things that we might have in here, other activity options. And so we mentioned in here that there was, instead of doing this activity, there was total of 3 activities. One was the Wolf Den Doodle, the Den Doodle Wolf, and the other was this Get to Know You Bingo. So it kind of sits there and tries to show you what were some of the different pieces that you can do. What were your options here? All right. So those are these 3 different things that they're looking at here for requirement 1. Now, if we do go down here to requirement 2, it actually doesn't have multiple activities on there. It has, hey, we're just going to talk about this one single approach in here. This is, to recite the Scout Oath and Scout Law with your den and your den leader. All right, pretty simple. There's probably not a whole lot of different variations. Maybe we could come up with different variations on how we might be able to go about and deal with this. And so, we certainly do have, it does go about and provide the leader the opportunity to maybe do something else, but here they're coming up with suggested activities. So even though we saw up here, hey, you could pick up one of these 3 different suggested activities, look at them, figure out what you want. In this particular case, there's only one suggested activity, right? Continuing along here, again, requirement 3, a few more multiple activities that you could suggest. And then again, if I'm trying to go about here and provide my meeting in here for my wolf den, I would go through here, kind of look at this and try to see, which ends up being probably a good activity for my den. What do they think they're going to want to do? What are they going to have fun with? And help me out planning these things. Again, here's going to be another one where it says with this wolf requirement for Bobcat, create a code of conduct. All right, so it kind of runs through how would I go through and deal with that. Again, not a whole lot of variation on those pieces in there. And so again, we kind of look at this depending upon what are the different activities, what are the different things that are going on. There could be multiple ideas that are being suggested that we could do to go about and to deal with these. Others may not be the case in there. All right. So those are some of those pieces that we're looking at here. Again, if we kind of do some different ideas, let me just kind of put on another one here. Let me go with this council fire to look at some of this idea about citizenship. I think, what was it, the previous examples, when we looked at that other webpage, we were looking at the outdoor stuff. So let's kind of jump around just a little bit so we can see some stuff in here. So if we look here at the council fire, so again, kind of going with the same thing. What is going to be the adventure of the snapshot? Kind of gives us a general idea about what we're talking about here. Wolf packs are like a large family, yada, yada, all this stuff in here. Different things, safety moments. How do we make sure that we're safe as we're providing these different activities? Again, what are the different requirements? Kind of give us a nice, all the requirements listed out together so we can kind of see the different things. And now it's going to go through here. Okay, let's go about and start working on each of the different requirements. Here's requirement 1, care and fold for a flag. So it has here a suggested activity that we could do, as our den in order to go through and build this in here. If we do look at the details, yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. Hopefully we'll get in there. There it goes. As what we might be able to do in here, it has a list. Oh, we're probably going to need a flag. We're probably going to look on here, this article from Scout Life. So I can click on this. And so if we come up here, hey, there's talks about how to display and fold the American flag. So it gives us a lot of information about what we might do to go through and deal with this. Other resources I might have in here. Even going down here, hey, if you don't have a flag, you might be able to borrow one from your school, your pack, your local troop, etc. So those are going to be spots where you could go with this. All right. And again, mention during the meeting, have the scouts buddy up, take turns. Those are the different things in here. So it kind of helps you run through and provide the different activities that we might be able to go through and deal with on there. Again, here for requirement 2, identify 3 points of the scout law that are important to be a good neighbor. And again, they've got here multiple activities. Again, we don't need to go about and do all the activities. It says here, choose one of the activities. Now, of course, it could be one that maybe you go about and down the road, you're thinking, maybe the scouts didn't quite, pick up or understand that, or maybe we got some additional time and they kind of enjoyed this. Maybe we can go about it, maybe at a later meeting, maybe pull some of these ideas in here. You do, one of the things to note is that, many of these ideas, depending upon what you're trying to do, some of them will take different amounts of time. And so it could be one that we're thinking about, okay, I want to knock off a couple different activities all in one meeting. And so, so you might plan 2 or 3 of these during a meeting, depending upon what seems to be successful in the right rate of things with you. All right. And then kind of continuing along here, again, showing you different ideas, some more ideas. Here's going to be, build a model of your home, some different ideas of how you could go through and deal with that. Looking at this, using materials, create a model of your community. All right. So those are different ideas. Create a neighborhood. So they're kind of looking at this idea. So again, this is that looking at this kind of family community requirements. If you remember, what are we talking about here? The overall adventure is going to be this council fire. We're looking at dealing with citizenship. Okay. Again, these are activities that were designed. Okay, what is thought that as a a scout in 2nd grade? What are the things that they're going to be able to work for? What is going to make sense to them? And so these are different things that they go about and kind of come up with some nice activities, kind of looking at those pieces in here. The last one in here talks about participate in a service project. And again, some different ideas about how we might be able to go about and do these ideas. So here's some appropriate service projects that might be able to be done and for somebody who is in 2nd grade and kind of goes about and talks, what do I need to do to present these different ideas in there? All right. So at this point, we're just about 8 o'clock here. So we've been here almost an hour in terms of this meeting. And so at this point, I kind of wanted to, I hit on showing a number of these different ideas, how we could go about and use some of the different tools that have been provided for us as we're trying to go about and roll out this new Cub Scout program for our leaders, how we're going to make it simple, how I'm going to make it easy, how's National trying to do that for us. And so at this point in time, kind of wanted to see if there was any sort of discussion that wanted to occur or any sort of questions, thoughts, or comments from anybody who is currently here with us in there. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring forth next. So with that idea, we'll see if there's any sort of comments that somebody wanted to bring forth. And so either you could, if you so desire, you could type it in the chat as we're looking at this, or turn on a microphone, or else if you're thinking you're good on that, we can call it quits here with our meeting at this point. All right. All right. I got one in there. It says it's all good. Deal with those different ideas. Yeah, so I kind of, as as a den leader or someone working with a den currently, I shouldn't say I'm not currently a den leader. as it is in there. I do know that one of the ideas is when I was a den leader, or working with the Cub Scout pack, one of the things when I went to Wood Badge, I'm like going, okay, let me try to create different things to make it easier for the next group come behind me, kind of put these different things together. What are different ideas that I found out? So again, so they wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. And I really kind of like this approach that has been done to try to say, hey, let's try not to reinvent this wheel. Let's try to give the leaders a nice activities plans, some approaches that can be done to make their lives easier. And again, if it's making their life easier with the program, all right, they're going to enjoy it more. Their scouts are going to enjoy it more, and that's going to be a benefit for everybody in the program. So with that, all right, so it looks like we're not getting any real questions or things on that. So with those, I'm going to wish everybody a good evening, and we'll go ahead and we'll stop the recording here. Go through and stop our recording with that, and we